Food is an incredible way of bringing people together and an incredibly powerful tool for undoing many of the environmental destructions that we're actually currently causing through food. So the food system is both our biggest problem, but also potentially our greatest friend. If you offer me a slice of pizza that you've finished eating and you don't want to eat anymore, I'm going to be grateful to you as an individual. Now, whether we do this on a micro level or whether we go through the apps that now exist, like Olio, which is an app, I don't know if it can work here in Romania, but it only takes a few champions to start kicking it off. It's a global platform. I can put my leftover food on this app and my neighbors can come and collect it off me. There are now millions of people around the world using this platform. It's Olio, O-L-I-O. And so there are lots of different ways of trying to do it. But my first thing to say would be let's avoid buying that surplus in the first place. The first thing to point out is that there is enough food on planet Earth to feed everyone. We have two principal problems in the food system. The first is simply that it is being run principally along the lines of corporations needing to generate a maximum financial return for their shareholders. Now, that is not an inherently bad thing, but the problem is that the way in which this is happening is devastating the natural world and providing junk food and overconsumption for an overfed, rich, Western kind of system. And this creates environmental degradation on the one hand and the problem of obesity and overconsumption on the other, at the same time that there's nearly 1 billion people who are hungry. So what do we need to do about that? Well, for sure, as individuals, we can change our consumption habits to eat less, particularly eat less meat and dairy products. If we live in rich countries, we probably eat more than is good for our own health as well as the health of the planet. And that is an individual thing. But by ourselves, we can only go so far. We also need a regulatory framework. We need laws, both in countries, but most especially internationally, that limit this environmental degradation, that stop deforestation and limit climate change. These are not easy things to achieve, but if we fail to achieve them, the human species is up against a very serious challenge. We're going to kill our own home, and there is nothing more important than putting the fire out in your own house. We should all recognize that our house is on fire. Feedback is a charity that I founded, it really started 10 years ago. I'm no longer in the organization. Myself and my co-founder hired a new director 2 years ago. The organization is being beautifully run. It continues to do amazing activities, but I'm no longer in there, which is a very nice thing, to be honest. But we started off by launching a national campaign against food waste in the United Kingdom, involving all the different partners, making it celebratory and joyous, at the same time as being angry and taking on the big supermarkets and the government. We had so much rapid and substantial impact at every level, both popular awareness and behaviour change, so a 21% reduction in household food waste in the UK. We changed supermarket policies and we changed government policies. And then our brothers and sisters around the world started inviting us all over the world to replicate the national campaigns that we had launched in other countries, and it became a global movement, so now involving millions of people, hundreds of startup companies, hundreds of big corporations, and many of the governments and international institutions have now got food waste as a priority area. I consider myself first and foremost an activist seeking to protect nature from the onslaught of the human food system. But in the course of that activism, I have had the enormous privilege and pleasure of helping many social entrepreneurs come up with wonderful startup businesses that are tackling this very problem, food waste, that I have focused on. And in the course of helping many others, I eventually decided to launch my own business, which is the beer company called Toast Ale. It turns waste bread into beer, sells the beer, makes money for the not-for-profit I founded. My activism and my social entrepreneurship go hand in hand. But I guess the entrepreneurship element implies having a business with a revenue generation element to the activities that an activist might be engaged in. if we get stuck on thinking that we have to have a big global strategy and a business model and financing and all these kind of stuff, governance, whatever, before we even start, nothing will ever happen. In my life, I've always dived into something just thinking I'm going to give this a go, and then I try to retrofit a kind of a viable model to stick on the back of it. And so my charity, I never intended to start a charity. I kicked off a global movement, and then we needed to build a charity to kind of govern that. I never intended to create an international enterprise making beer that would have a business model and investment and the rest of it. I just started making beer working from waste bread, and then everything sort of happened in its wake. So I would just say anyone who wants to do social entrepreneurship, don't get too stuck on having to have everything absolutely ready. Otherwise you never do anything. Just go, do it, and the things will kind of come in your wake.